I'm making another album, and after doing the 53 or so splurges in 5 hours, I've continued splurging every day. So it's now Saturday. So on Thursday, I think I did about 15, 16, maybe a few more. Yesterday, I did the same. And I mean, I'm way into how many? I think I've done 150 something now splurges. So I've done way more than the 100 I needed to do for the 100 splurge challenge. And I actually had to stop myself yesterday after the Make an Album with Mike call, because there was a couple of people who, particularly Layla, she's done 233 splurges, and I had to stop myself from being all competitive and going, right, I need to do more than that, because I really don't need to do more than that. And I mean, the reason that I'm continuing to splurge at this high rate, I mean, I'm essentially taking an hour to splurge and doing around 15 or 16. The reason I'm continuing to splurge at this high rate is in order to really embed the extreme quantity sort of connections in my mind, so that when I pick it up again, it will be easier to pick it up again, because it really has been quite an eye-opener to turn up the quantity in this way. But this morning I slightly changed tack, just slightly, because I was going, I mean, I think I'd got it down to doing a splurge in 3 or 4 minutes, including all of the admin like exporting and stuff like that. And at this stage I thought, well, what, aside from actually embedding this, this process, this super fast process into my mind, so that I can pick it up again much easier later at the end of the 6th album. What is the actual purpose of this splurging? Of course, it's to make ideas for the album, and the more ideas you make, the more you'll have which are great. It's just like rolling the dice. But that's not the only purpose now for me of splurging. I mean, to be honest, I have got plenty of very, very good ideas that can go on this next album already. But the other purpose for me is practice. I mean, I talked about this in a previous album podcast towards the start of the 5th album. And really at this point, I mean, one of the ways that I'm going to be able to improve the quality of this 6th album is in my ability to sing, but also the lyrics that I'm coming up with. And in terms of my ability to sing, I'm treating these splurges that I'm doing now as opportunities to practice the things that I'm learning from Laura. And I'll talk more about auto-tune and using it or not using it, and what I've been doing there in a future episode, because really this time actually practicing singing and also improving my ability to write in scare quotes lyrics are intimately connected. There's actually a connection there that I think is very valuable to understand. So I'm going to come out and say, I think that most people make lyric writing way too hard. I do not think it needs to be as hard as people make it out to be. I'm not saying there aren't times when there are difficult moments, but it has this sort of resonance to it. I mean, I didn't do it for a long time because I thought it was hard. I believed that it was hard and that I couldn't do it. But yesterday in the Make an Album with Mike call, one of the people said, how do lyrics fit into all this? How can I write lyrics? And I said, well, Adam, what are you doing at the moment when you're splurging? So, well, I'm just doing vowel sounds and things like that. And I was like, so when you're splurging a vocal, you're and this is what people do a lot. They no, they don't actually sing words. I'm like, why don't you sing words? And he said, well, because I want my lyrics. My lyrics are really important, so I want them to be really good, which makes a lot of sense. Of course, that makes a lot of sense. And I was like, but you're splurging, right? And the idea of splurging is zero focus on quality. I mean, you want your music to be good, but you seem to be able to be splurging that. So why can't you just splurge some words? And then I said, well, also, he was talking. I said, and he said, well, but I kind of need to think. I need to figure out the words in order to be able to, make them really good. And I said, what you just said, did you figure out what you had to just say in order to make it really good? Well, I mean, I had to think in order to do it. But when you think about it, you talk without thought most of the time. So why can't you do the same thing when you're singing? If, and this is a big if, you don't focus on the quality of the lyrics. So it was quite funny because he was saying things and I was just singing them back to him, Yes, I have to think and right. And this is something that I've noticed in my lyric, in scare quotes, writing. And, just bear in mind, my lyrics, I'm not saying that they're brilliant. I'm not saying that they're works of genius or anything like that. But they're not, of course they're not going to be works of genius because I've only just started doing it. But I can tell you something, by taking the approach that I'm talking about now, number one, they exist. And number two, they're way better than they would have been had I believed all of this nonsense about it being hard. So what I do when I'm splurging is I don't just sing vowels and I don't do that. I sing words. And if I don't know what to sing, I will often say, I'll sing, I don't know what to sing. And so I will literally sing how I'm feeling. I'm feeling very uncertain. I mean, if you go and listen to my previous album, it's a few episodes ago, called the episode is called Here It Is. I think it's the second track. It's the second track or the third track. And the lyric goes like this. I don't know what to do. I can't actually remember how the tune goes, but I don't know what to do in situations like this. Is how it starts. And that is literally an example of when I think it was that's right. I was singing over the top of a DFAM drum thing, and I didn't know what to sing, so I just said, I don't know what to do in situations like this. And then the way what came out, I was like, oh, I quite like that. So I just say, oh, when it feels so good like this, right? And that's how that lyric came out. It was literally I was just singing what I was thinking at the time, as if I was talking. And obviously that's not the only type of lyric that I do or that I use, but it does work. It's a lyric, and that track ended up being one of my favorites on the album. I mean, and again, even if that lyric didn't end up being good, it being a lyric of some kind means it can be improved. It's not like if you figure out every word, you still go back to it and change it if it's not right. So why not figure out every word? Because you'll come out with a lot more words, just like you do when you talk. And then you can come back to it and improve those lyrics. And this process of lyric writing, I mean, I've been asked so many times, how do lyrics fit into the music machine? And I couldn't really answer that question because I didn't write them myself. But now I have answered that question, and I'm really excited to be to have developed a way of taking the principles of the music machine, which is what I've used to make music for a good few years now, and what I've taught for a long time as well. So I've taken this process and are applying it, have applied it to writing lyrics. And what I've discovered is that it's nowhere near as hard as people make it out to be. I mean, of course, just to reiterate, the lyrics I'm writing now, they're not works of genius. They're very simple. They're probably nothing to write home about, but they are going to improve the more I practice, because now I have a process for practicing writing lyrics where I am writing an enormous amount of lyrics, or coming up with, it's not really writing, coming up with an enormous amount of lyrics. So, for example, in the splurging that I've been doing, where the lyrics are coming from, so you might think, well, I've done 160 splurges. What have you been singing about? Over and over, in such a short space of time. Where do you get the ideas from, Mike? Well, I don't know if I actually said this on the previous podcast, so if I'm repeating myself, I apologise. But basically, my process at the moment is I'm simply going through random presets of a plugin that I like called Choreographs. For each splurge, it's a new preset. Just going through the list. Now, each preset has a name. And each of those, has a title. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that title and making a one-word name out of it. So I'll give you some examples. Pinprick, pie, ghosts, nights, moderate, mono, flowering. And that word is my starting point for whatever it is I'm singing. So I'll just start singing about flowering. I'll just start singing about moderate, yet something, it will spark something, and essentially I just sing whatever comes into my mind. Now, later on because I know that later on in the machine, I'm going to be able to change those lyrics, improve those lyrics. I'm going to be able to discover more about them. I'm going to be able to put an emotional arc around them. I'm going to be able to expand on them, or in certain cases, I'm going to have a written song from beginning to end. A simple one, a short one for sure, because I will have splurged it. But occasionally I do have some of those. So, for example, on my previous album, the one that's on Here It Is, Flickering Hope, which is one of my favourite songs on the album, that literally came out, and I think I might have changed one word. But aside from that, all of those lyrics, I mean, there aren't, when I say all of those lyrics, there are not many of them, but that whole song was written in a splurge. It just came out. And you might think, but, well, how am I going to do that? How is it possible for me to do that? Well, how you get to do that is by splurging lyrics, because you get better at it over time. I mean, even in the last few days, since I did that 53 splurges in 5 hours, where I was using this process. Now, a few days later, I mean, I woke up this morning and I sang a few things, and I was like, this is getting easier. More words are coming into my mind. Like it's starting to feel that the lyrics are improving. Having said that, there is still many times when the words are crap, when it just doesn't work, when it's all sticky. But the bad ones are getting better, as are the good ones. And this brings me back to the conversation I had with Adam, one of the Make an Album with Mike group, about writing lyrics, because he had the very valid and understandable thought that, well, I'm playing the guitar and I'm singing, so I have to come up with a melody and I have to play the guitar. And if I have to come up with lyrics as well, then that means that none of them are going to be any good. And what I have found is that is sometimes true, but it also wants to be questioned. That assumption wants to be questioned. Why? Because if I was to say to you, let's just take a very well-known phrase. I just need to get out of my own way. Who is the I in this situation? I just need to get out of my own way. That I is thought. That I is thinking. So the idea, and this is why it's hard to write lyrics, the idea that you need to figure them out is often what is standing in your way to it being easy and to there being good lyrics that are appearing. Because as I said, you're already able to talk without thought for the majority of the time. It just comes out. You are able to express yourself, not all the time, not when you're under pressure often, but when you're not under pressure, when you're having a conversation with a friend, you don't think, it's not, oh my God, figure out what I've got to say right now. It just comes out. Okay. And the thing is about doing it all at the same time is that what it ends up happening, and particularly using the kind of processes and the little games that I'm playing, what ends up happening is that it takes your focus off the lyrics, which allows them to come out. And I know this might seem like magic or that I'm talking nonsense, but it's true. And one of the things that I've noticed that has blown my mind this morning, which is coming back to why I was saying that practicing singing is intimately connected with coming up with better lyrics. What I've found this morning is I've put after my last singing lesson with Laura, and I will do an album episode about it, because my mind has been blown on multiple occasions. But I created this image, which is what I need to focus on to create for a certain tone to come out that doesn't sound like a choir boy, and that it kind of has power, that's relaxed, that where I'm not straining my voice. And I've created this image which really helps me do that. And what I found this morning is that by focusing on that, on the performance, actually by taking my mind off the words and focusing on something else, better words have been coming out. The lyrics have been, not all of them. Again, there's a lot of rubbish that comes out, but it actually has, in many cases, a positive impact on what I'm able to say. Why is that? Because I am getting out of my own way. Because I am focusing on something else, which allows me to do what I can already do. And this is the essence of the whole coaching frame that I employ, which is really the difference between a teacher and a coach, is that a teacher teaches you something that you don't know, whereas a coach helps you do what you can already do, right? And the amazing thing is that you can already do so much more than you think you can, including writing lyrics. I am sure of that. If you can speak the language that you want to write the lyrics in, then you can write lyrics by getting out of your own way. And that often means by doing more than simply just focusing on writing lyrics. And again, I just can't stress this enough. Because I'm splurging the words, I know that even if they're rubbish and there's something good there, it gives me an idea. I can change them in the future. So there's literally no downside. So if you are attempting to write lyrics and you're kind of sitting down with a pen and a piece of paper and like banging your head against a brick wall, and then you come up with something that sounds wrong or forced or whatever it is, just know this. Lyrics do not have to be as hard as you're making them. Just simply start with whatever comes into your head. Now, in some of the songs that I did, here's a little thing I did as well. In the last album, I haven't done it with this one yet, but I may well do it now I've remembered it, is what I would do is I would take a random object. So one of the tracks on the album is called Landfill. It's the penultimate track on the last album. It's on Here It Is. It's called Landfill. So again, it's very short. And that came out of me singing about a blue recycling box that I'm looking at now in my studio that's full of paper recycling. So what if you're not sure of what to sing about, just choose a random object. I've done another one that may well go on this next album called Trackpad. And I'm literally just singing about, the one trackpad, it goes smooth white angles, right? And that's That's essentially the lyric. And what's interesting about it is that even though I'm singing about something as humdrum as a white Apple trackpad, what I actually, the human mind can't help but come up with connections, can't help with come up with patterns. If you look at all the conspiracy theories out there, there's an example of a human mind coming up with all sorts of patterns and connections where there may or may not be them, right? So Smooth White Angles is about perfectionism, right? That song to me is now about perfectionism. That's what I'm singing about. Even though originally it was about a trackpad, the blue recycling box one. How does it go? It goes, don't throw it away, right? So it's, but don't throw it away can also refer to a love, to a relationship. It can also refer to not throwing away an idea that you've been struggling with or working on, that you've got bored with in the creative process. And that's what, I'm talking about there. But originally I was singing about a blue recycling box. It was called Blue Recycling Box for absolutely ages. It was only at the very end I was like, oh, I've really got to rename this. I can't call it Blue Recycling Box. That's a terrible name for a song. So I called it Landfill, right? So again, this is another example. I mean, there are so many. There's so many different ways of coming up with easy ways of coming up with lyrics, but you don't have to make it so hard. The meaning, the more simple, in a sense, that you can make your lyrics, the more space you will leave for your mind and the listener's mind to find connections, to find meaning where there might be none. And even if you do want to write something that's less simple, starting with something that's simple doesn't stop you from doing that. So I hope you found this valuable. I'm also using occasionally, although I haven't been for this Splurge challenge so much, I have been using some ChatGPT to help me write lyrics. Certainly not to write them itself, but I've been using a process to do that. I'll probably talk more about that on my other podcast, The Makeist. But essentially, if you're struggling to write lyrics, or if you want to write lyrics and don't think you can, simply start singing whatever comes into your head. I guarantee you will start to find a freedom and a joy, and you'll surprise yourself. Remember, you talk every day, most of the time, without thought. That means you can do it when you're singing as well. And if you'd like my help to write your own lyrics using this much simpler and easier method, I'm running a new live online workshop very soon called Turbo Lyric Attack. So if you'd like to find out more about that, send me an email to mike@makemusicyourlife.com and I'll get you all the details.